Well, Dad, we're back. I think this is like episode 5. I like that face you're making. All right, that'll be that. We can make that the YouTube thumbnail. That whatever we were just doing there, I'll screen cap that, and that'll be our thumbnail. Mastcast is back. He's former NASCAR driver Rick Mast. I'm his non-driving son, Ricky Mast. And Dad, this was another great weekend for NASCAR. In my opinion, the entire weekend was awesome. We've come a long way from seemingly, well, it was just a month ago when we were talking about Mother Nature screwing us over with the Clash and all that. And everything's been a whole lot better since then, in my opinion. And this weekend, Atlanta, I will go ahead and say reinforces what I said previously on Masscast. I think that Echo Park Speedway. It's going to take me some getting used to. I'm going to call it Atlanta a lot still, probably. I think Atlanta is the most entertaining track on the circuit right now, at least for the fans. I'm not getting into the maybe the purity of it or the old school of it and nobody being able to pull away from each other. I'm not debating all that. I'm just saying if I'm a fan in the stands or I'm a fan at home watching on TV like I was, and I do live in the Atlanta area now, but we have a little one here and we didn't have a babysitter, so we were watching on TV. But all weekend, trucks, O'Reilly series, I got that one right. O'Reilly series, Cup series, very entertaining. Ended with amazing win from Tyler Reddick, Michael Jordan front and center again. All kinds of great stuff. So, where you want to start? There's all kinds of stuff to unpack here.
No, yeah, it was great. I mean, we got some momentum going right now, man. NASCAR's got the big mo on their side, right? I mean, the Daytona deal, that was everybody agreed that was great. Had great TV ratings. Everything was good about Daytona. Darn if we didn't follow it up with Atlanta. Right? It was just man, phenomenal racing on TV to watch on TV. And then a lot of folks were in the stands. They keep saying ever since they've reconfigured it, each time they come back, they get more and more fans back in the stands. And that point was proven Sunday when you want to watch the race. But man, you couldn't ask for a better. I don't know. You couldn't ask for better races. The three races, they were just great. I mean, it just again, all kinds of storylines about these races and the whole deal. But to me, it's like, we got momentum on our side, man. We got NASCAR's got momentum. We haven't had this in a while like this. You just kind of feel it there. You read it, you see it. Okay, you hear it, the tones of voices of people talking, the interviews they do, all the stuff that's going on. It's just like you hear it and see it in these folks, man. It's like, we got renewed enthusiasm, okay, with not just fans, but the participants, all right, some of the media. You just, I don't know. It's a good gig going right now. We got to keep it going.
It is. And you got to keep some things in perspective. And I'm sure somebody could hear me say this and then pull a certain picture of a certain angle of the stands at Atlanta and say, well, it wasn't sold out. It wasn't like it was in 1999, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, okay. But put it in perspective, it wasn't that long ago, seemingly, that we're going to Atlanta once a year and the grandstands it was pretty tough. There would be a whole lot of open seats. And now you're coming there twice a year and you got a whole lot of butts in those seats and you got great racing to go along with it. So keep things in perspective here. Don't live too much in the moment. Just think back a few years to where we were at that particular venue where NASCAR has been for decades and decades and how it was. I don't know if it was ever truly in like at risk of going away completely. I find that hard to believe with a market like Atlanta, but it was struggling. If we're being honest here, it just was. And now look at where we're at right now. And we're in a much better, you just keep things in perspective. We're in a much better spot right now.
Oh yeah, it's good. Yeah, they reconfigured that track and making it a mini restrictor plate track. Well, they don't use restrictor plates any longer, but same concept. It's a mini Daytona, mini Talladega. I mean, it's so good right now. We're starting to hear rumblings about reconfigure some of the other racetracks. Man, I hope they don't do that. I mean, they could do it. You could do it at any of those mile and a half racetracks if you wanted to. Do it at Kansas, do it at Texas, do it at all these places. And then what you have is another Atlanta. It's not Talladega Daytona, but it's a shorter version of Talladega Daytona, right? Everybody stays packed up, bunched up there. Everybody stays wide open. Our draft comes into play. But, the last few races of Atlanta have been like that. It's just that I don't know, it's like it's catching on with people now or something all of a sudden. I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but it's a great deal.
Our buddy Kurt, who, listens and watches, and we've known for a long, long time. Good dude, Kurt. I know he watches and listens to us. He sent me a message. He's like, he's all for reconfiguring Texas to be like Atlanta, and he said, y'all should talk about that. And I wanted to talk about it because I do think it's a great topic. I'm with you. I don't want to reconfigure any place else to be like Atlanta because I think, and this is not just NASCAR, this is any sport, like really a lot of forms of entertainment. You find something that works, and sometimes your reaction can be, all right, we got to replicate this as much as we can, as many other places as we can, and then you end up losing a little bit of what's special about it. It's kind of like, I don't know if this is a fair comparison, but it's kind of like the championship debate we've had
Mhm.
the last decade with where we we had created or conjured up a game 7 moment, but the problem is if you build a game 7 moment every year, like it's a sure thing you're gonna get it, then it kinda loses the magic of a game 7. That's what makes a game 7 special is you don't have one every year. So, I think the Atlanta is such a good race now, let's leave it that way. We know
Yeah,
it's
it's
gonna be
kinda
these races 2 times a year, let's leave it that way.
kinda like, I'll give you a good case in point would be, hypothetically, say F1. Say, they come into the United States, the worldwide deal F1 is. They did the Netflix series a few years ago that really got interest going, and they got a couple races US now. And when they come, they get all the fanfare, they get a lot of people show up, a lot talked about, a big deal, right? And I've always said F1, I love F1 as far as the engineering part, the technical part. The racing itself sucks. I mean, you just get out there and everybody goes as hard as they can, but it's not racing. It's just seeing who can go the fastest, but you don't really race each other very much. Take those 1 or 2 races that they run with the fanfare, add 25 more races to it in the United States, make those guys run every week, right? 36 races like NASCAR, and then come back and tell me how special it is, right? It goes into what you're saying. Something is good, you don't oversaturate it.
Yeah, it's an easy thing to do. It really is. Like anything in life, if you find something that's really good, you want to do it as much as possible. In some areas that can work, but it's sometimes what makes things special is they don't happen every day. They don't happen every place you go. Like that's you look forward to those things, like the Masters is only one time a year and one course a year. I don't know why that's the first thing that came to my mind. Maybe it's because it's around the corner, but that's just kind of what makes these things special is you don't have it all the time. And I like the idea of I don't want the same type of racing every week. I don't want that. I want to see some races where a guy can drive away or pull away. I want that mixed in there too. I don't need every week to be green, white, checkered, three quarters of the field wrecks, that whole deal. So I think it's a very, very, I love that Kurt brought that up. I think it's a great, great topic. I think that they found a way to really fix it, like fix Atlanta as far as attendance and interest wise. And so great, cool. That doesn't mean like if another venue or area needs a little bit of help with something, you don't have to replicate Atlanta. You can find some other ways to do that. So all that being said, so I'll before we get into the race, I'll say this: the winner of the first 2 weeks, Tyler Reddick. So in between his first 2 races, he was on a week long media tour with NASCAR. Of course, you win the Daytona 500, they take you anywhere and everywhere, and you're on anybody that's even got a camera and a microphone. They take you there. So Tyler Reddick was all over the place. He was on the Empire State Building. I'd look on TV. He's on ESPN. He's here. He's there. Well, this past Friday, he was in the Atlanta area, obviously coming here for race weekend in Atlanta. And he came out to Truist Park where I work with the Braves. And I got to meet him and interview him for those who watch the show and don't know, I host a podcast for the Atlanta Braves called Behind the Braves. So Tyler is my guest. That show will be dropping this week. And I gotta tell you, I'd never met him before. I became a Tyler Reddick fan after meeting him, talking with him. Super, super nice guy. Um, I played, if you listen to the show when it comes out, I played like a little history game with him, where I got a bunch of names of actual NASCAR drivers and Major League Baseball players from the past. and he had to guess, was each one a baseball player or a NASCAR driver. And in talking with him on that's where I found out he's a regular on racingreference.com and like somebody that's very interested in the history of the sport too, which was and appreciates it, which I thought was really cool. And once he put it together that I was your son, he really he got a kick out of that. And he even said, he's like, well, when he found out, when I told him like who my dad was, he goes, he was on stage with Harry, the Hall of Fame. And I was like, yeah, he was. So and then after we did the interview, we took him on a tour of the ballpark, and then he did a fan event at our clubhouse store just for an hour. Had the Daytona 500 trophy there, the Harley J. Earl trophy. Fans could come in for free, get autographs and pictures with him. And this is what I love. He took pictures and signed whatever people wanted to sign. But with each person, we had a big crowd, right? So we had to keep it moving. But with every single person, he was taking time to actually talk to them a little bit. It wasn't just signing, looking down, never looking at them or anything. Like, was taking time to actually talk with everybody, interact with them. Uh, Great video we posted on Braves channels of him. There's a kid taking his picture with him, and Tyler just all of a sudden takes off his Daytona 500 ring, says, "Here, pop that on for a second," and the kid just lights up. Like, he made that kid's year, right? So all that to say, I became a big Tyler Reddick fan after that. So uh, it was cool to see him win on Sunday. Uh, Came out of nowhere. No fender on the right front, which I was going to ask you about that. Do you think that actually helped him? I'm stupid when it comes to that stuff, so you got to tell me.
I don't know, man. I listen to all the talking heads, right, all day, and it seems like nobody can quite figure that out. All I can do is go off history, and I remember Martinsville, Bristol, and somebody at Dover lost the right front fender, right? I think it was Earnhardt at Bristol, and I think Gant maybe at Martinsville, and I forget Dover. Anyhow, I think after the fenders got knocked off, man, they dominated, right? And everybody said the reason was, well, it's keeping the right front tire cool. And I heard that today from some talking head in racing.
Mm.
Well, that's what they figured is going on. I will say this: we talk about thousandths of an inch and all the body configurations and everything they do. The one thing that does make sense, you do get a little technical here. The air, first thing the air sees is a bumper, right? It sees the bumper, then it kind of jumps up, and the part of his fender that was missing was that round part above the bumper. On as it rounds up and goes back, that part was missing. That my understanding is not a real critical area. In other words, there's not a lot going on right there. The bumper's done the work to start with, and it separates and the air goes up. And where the air was going up, it really evidently is not attaching itself to the fender in that area very much, okay, to begin with. And so with the fender not there, it didn't really affect it much. So had to be some effect. We didn't see him leading the pack or leading the line for 5 laps, right? I mean, all he had to do it was a quarter of a mile. He got jumped out and got the lead with that big push, and the momentum held him. Don't know if he could have led a pack or not for a lap or two, right? Don't know what that was about, but when it first happened, and I saw that, and I saw actually the damage of the car when it was Victory Lane or wherever it was. I'm like, damn, the whole fender's gone, right? But
Mhm.
how in the world is that? How does that happen? And then thinking about it and going back and pulling back my old aerodynamic studies from years ago, thinking about that area right in there is not, now down on the side it is. I mean, I know that's a big deal on the side right there, but it was gone. So I mean, I don't know, Ricky. I'm sure probably we got guys already cut fenders off the cars today, maybe even NASCAR sticking a car in the wind tunnel to see what was going on there. I don't know, but pretty remarkable that car was still able to run that fast to do that and win that race.
Yeah, yeah, it really was. It was interesting. So now I'm sitting here in my mind thinking about how the air moves on the car. So let's go with that theory. The bumper's doing all the work. That means the next time that air is really hitting something on the car, you would be the windshield essentially, kind of in
Yeah,
that scenario.
somewhere before the A post, before the windshield,
Okay.
when it starts doing this thing again, then you've got the air exiting out of the hood with the new style body. You got the air coming out of the hood and stuff going on that I'm not privy to as far as aerodynamics and what's actually going on with that. Because right now with this car, the air comes in the grill and it just directly goes out the vents of the hood. Right, it feeds the fuel cooling system, and it feeds the engine for air, air for the engine, and then the leftover goes out the exits of the hood. And I'm not ever working with these cars myself with a wind tunnel. I'm not sure what goes on right there, but needless to say, you can run a half a lap at Atlanta with a push and win the race with no right front fender. That's all I can tell you for
Yeah.
sure.
Do you see, there was, the one really good video, his onboard camera when he went from about like 20th or 21st up to about 3rd, and I think it was like 2 laps or something. That was pretty wild to watch. It's one of those videos that even though I've been basically watching this stuff my entire life, it was one of those videos that still was a good reminder to me of, like, how good you guys are and how tough it is to do what you do and the split-second decisions that have to be made. Honestly, I don't know, 100 times a lap. I mean, just you're constantly making these split-second decisions, and when you see one that just works out perfectly, it's like when our buddy Kenny Wallace pushed Dale Sr. to his last one at Talladega, like, when everything just comes together right, you know? You made all the right decisions and the bounces bounced your way where you needed them to. It's almost like art, like when it just works perfectly like that, to watch that kind of stuff. It's really,
Well, it
really,
is.
I love watching that.
Yeah, it is. It's you kinda get a knack for it as time goes on, and then when you make the wrong move, it's so friggin' glaring, i.e. Bubba. I mean, you
Yeah.
know, Lord have mercy, the guy had lead going in 3, last lap, but that's what happens, these type racetracks, Talladega, Daytona, Atlanta now, going into 3 leading doesn't mean anything, man. It's getting off through the turn and off 4, but, Bubba went all the way to the outside with, and I listened to some of his in-car Freddie Craftsy spotter, very, very good spotter, and, he kept telling him, clear high," and I don't know, what went on there, but, obviously, and Bubba will tell you, I'm sure, because he's dejected, it's the wrong move to make. Thing of it is, if he'd have stayed down there, that outside line may have went on by him anyhow, I don't know, but it turned out to look like a glaring mistake on Bubba's part, but whatever. Reddick made a hell of a move to do what he did to win that race. A heck of a deal to come back up through the pack the way he did to do all that. And they've got things going for them right now. They got it
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah. No, that's a great call on Bubba. I think he even said, I can't remember exactly how he said it in his interview, but he said something to the effect of, it's sort of like he didn't think he went as high as he went, you know? So I think he was dejected, but he almost looked a little like just trying to, rewind it in his mind, trying to figure out what he hit. But you're exactly right. Like, he had to make a move. He couldn't just stay on the bottom. He had to go up. So it just didn't work out for him. But yeah, to your point, 23-11. I mean, basically, if you go back to whatever day it was in December on the courthouse steps, with him and Jim France, it's just been nothing but wins for that team. I mean, just absolutely nothing. As far as the racing, Denny, of course, has had some terrible things off the track and not related to racing that have happened, but performance wise and everything, as far as that team and their moment, talk about big momentum. I mean, goodness gracious, you just couldn't script it any better for them. What's
No,
happened, and then Michael Jordan. Obviously, we have to talk about this. So, just the impact of who is still, I would say, the most popular athlete on the planet, even though he's been retired for about 20 some years now. It's hard to, I would have a hard time saying that there's still anybody that's not as popular as him as far as athletes, current or retired, go. I mean, just with the brand, and he's just one of those very, very few truly larger than life figures that we've seen. And so for him to be front and center in NASCAR at all, much less the first 2 weeks, and I thought this was interesting. I read this today. So I actually saw Jamie Little had, it was a post from Awful Announcing, and Jamie Little commented on it. So NBC, I don't know how much money, but NBC, as the story goes, paid Jordan, everybody thinks a whole lot of money for him to be a basketball analyst during their basketball coverage this year. Now, look, I don't watch a lot of NBA. I try to keep up with the Hawks here in town as much as I can, but don't watch a ton of NBA. I watch our Who's in college. That's our Virginia Cavaliers. We're up to number 11, by the way, after a big win this weekend. Um, but from what I read, NBC paid MJ a lot of money, and this is a big deal. They're going to have him as a basketball analyst this year. And the article I read, basically, it sounds like he did one sit down with Mike Tirico at some point earlier in the season, and they've kind of chopped that up, and they're just showing bits of it every now and then. So far to date, it's only like 4 minutes or 5 minutes in total of these segments that have aired that have actually shown up on NBC. They're talking about how minutes wise in the last 8 days, he's actually done more time on Fox during NASCAR races for free, obviously. These last 8 days on Fox, just with the NASCAR coverage. Um, it's a big deal, man, for the world's most popular athlete to be there front and center for NASCAR each week. I know he's not one of the drivers. Like we our drivers are our heroes, right? We need to make them our heroes. But that's a big deal that he's there, and he's a legitimate he legitimately loves the sport, which is great. And I give Jamie Little a shout out too. It seems like she must have a really good rapport with him, because he's not one to do a lot of interviews, and he seems like he'll pretty much, if she asks him to say something, he'll do it, which is great. So I'll start it
Yeah.
there, but let's just talk about the Jordan effect and what you think about it so far.
Well, yeah, I heard, I think to talk about what you said there, I heard Jamie little interview she did, first time she met Jordan somewhere, she was not in Nike, she was in Adidas. So they had they had to move the camera off, not a full shot, right? But anyhow, oh, Michael Jordan, I'll talk about 5 years now, or is it 6? And I'm gonna get to this deal a bit. What I wanna talk about here real quickly is the Joe Gibbs effect, all right?
Okay.
Joe Gibbs came into our sport 90, 92, 93,
Yep.
very early 90s. And I remember going to a welcoming, I don't know, gathering or something. It was in Daytona. It's one of the fancy motels, the big ballroom, and they were actually honoring Joe Gibbs, welcoming him into our sport. I remember Ricky Skaggs was there singing, a lot of different things going on. But you got to understand, this was back before social media. This was back before all this stuff. You found out things by watching television and your newspaper, right? And
Mhm.
at that point, nationally, I don't know that there was a more discussed or more well-known name than Joe Gibbs, just because of all his success with the Redskins and all of the Super Bowls and all that. He was a reverend coach, but people just loved Joe Gibbs. And he shows up in racing, right, as a team owner. And he's still here, 40 years later or whatever. And I remember thinking, man, this is a big deal. And everybody in our sport thought it was a big deal. And Joe Gibbs had a positive impact on our sport. There's no doubt he brought thousands and thousands of fans to our sport, and even more eyeballs to our sport. People that watch it maybe didn't stick on and stay with us, but there's a lot of longtime fans in our sport today that came because of Joe Gibbs in those days. And again, he was a national personality. Here now we got MJ showing up. It's been 5 years since they started, I think, maybe
Mhm.
6, maybe this is their 6th year. And I've been waiting. I've been waiting all this time for the Joe Gibbs effect to happen with Michael. Okay, he came in. I mean, a lot of everybody in the sport praised him and wrote stuff about him, talked about him, and did all that. But it seems like it was like a perfect storm happened, man, when him and NASCAR got in the suit. They got suing each other last year, and it comes down to the wintertime in December, and that's all over the news. It's if you go on social media, it's all you hear. Michael Jordan suing NASCAR. All right,
Yeah.
Michael Jordan this, Michael Jordan that, NASCAR. They get that thing settled. We go to friggin' Daytona. Michael Jordan his team wins the Daytona 500, and it's all over, not just national, but worldwide. And here's the reason I say worldwide. As Joe Gibbs was a nationwide brand, Michael Jordan is a worldwide brand and product, right? I don't mean product, Mike's Mike, but his
Mhm.
name and his influence and his reach is worldwide. And for some reason, it's like a perfect storm happened 5 years later or 6 years later after he came in the sport. All of a sudden, it's like the country and the world is finding out, hey, Michael Jordan, he's in NASCAR. Michael Jordan has a race team. Well, he's been here 5 years. Well, guess what? Michael's so low keyed. He doesn't do interviews. Everybody knows that. Very low keyed. You know, you'd be hard pressed to get an interview out of him from anybody, right? He's very he's very kind of like Earnhardt and that stuff, right? Dale kept to himself, Michael keeps to himself. But to go to Daytona and do what they did. Jamie got the interviews. Then they go to Atlanta, man, and they win again. And there's Michael during the race telling Jamie Little on national TV that, no, it's not cold. I'm so excited. I don't even know it's cold out here. And uh, for all that to happen, it's like, man, the whole country now is talking about Michael Jordan. Now, what I mean by the Joe Gibb effect is we're going to have the Michael Jordan effect. We're going to get thousands and thousands of people watching our sport now for a while just because of the interest of Michael Jordan. There's no denying that. There's no doubt of that. This is what this is kind of the moment that I've been waiting on since Michael Jordan came into our sport, right? And I've never outside of our sport, I don't know how many people or the rest of the country or the world knew about him being in our sport, but now after the last 3 months, 4 months, everybody in this country and most people in the world know Michael Jordan is a part of NASCAR. And the neat part about it, there's nothing pretentious about that. There's nothing other than he loves our sport of NASCAR. And it was instilled in him by his daddy. His daddy took him as a little kid to the races, right? And his daddy loved it, and then Michael fell in love with it. Then he spent a few years off messing around with basketball or something, making a few $1 billion, right? But then he kind of, it's kind of like you could see it, man, when he's at the racetrack and when he's talking to people and interacting and even being interviewed, which he doesn't ever do. It's like he's home. It's like this is his home, man. I mean, like he's back to, I don't know if it's back to his roots or whatever it is, but the other thing it does too, it gives him, the competitive person like Michael, he hadn't had anything to have these things, get these juices flowing in a decade or two, right? And believe you me this, if you're in NASCAR and you're in that garage area and you've got an ownership role in a team, you're going to be sweating bullets and jumping up and down and screaming and hollering if your team wins. And he's a perfect example of a race fan, number one, that is now a race team owner. And NASCAR, everybody in our sport, we can't do anything but benefit from him being there. And again, it's the Joe Gibbs effect, i.e., now Michael Jordan effect.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. I love that you touched on it because I wanted to bring that up too. You can tell the competitor. Like this is, he's been retired from basketball for a couple decades. He had ownership in the NBA. Didn't really see as far as, wins and banners hanging up. Didn't see a lot of success there. He sold that team. And this is you can tell it's scratching that competitive itch, and he's
Yeah,
fully invested in that part. Because I'd never, you
it's
might,
from the
you,
heart.
you might have to give up, you got to retire from basketball or whatever, but it's not like that competitive drive goes away. It's still
No.
there. And if you find something else that gets you fired, I think he even said it after they won Daytona last week. He said something to the effect of he felt like it was like winning another NBA championship.
Yep.
Basically, that's how he felt, and that's legit. I'll give you the MJ effect. Here's just a little small example of it from this weekend. So my buddy Kevin McAlpin, who he officiated my wedding. Longtime Braves Radio Network reporter, now works for Impact Financial here in Atlanta. So he and his son Max went to their first NASCAR race this weekend. They went
Oh,
to the race
good.
yesterday. Had a good time, and they were very cold. They were very, very cold. But he said they had a great time, and he was posting all these pictures. They were down on pit road before the race and walking around, and Max was getting his picture next to all the cars and all that. But then Kevin sent in a friends group text we have, he sent a picture because the airport, and for those who don't know, in Atlanta, the airport that all the drivers and teams fly in and out of is right there by the racetrack, outside of turn 2. I forget. It's right there by the racetrack. Kevin sends us a picture, and it was just of MJ's plane sitting there at the airport. Um, he saw that and knew immediately that's Michael Jordan's plane because it's hard to mistake it. But that's just kind of that effect of somebody that's never been to a NASCAR race. They're like, darn, Michael Jordan's here, and they're aware that Michael Jordan's there. And the effect of that just can't be understated. I tell you, if you're going to go through all the pain of that lawsuit and how nasty that got publicly, and it was bordering on not just detrimental, but catastrophic for the sport if it played out a certain way. And when I say a certain way, I'm not trying to be cryptic there. I'm saying you and I talked about it before. Had they not reached a settlement and either side just wins and one side loses, I think in the end for the sport would have lost regardless of who won and who lost. So for them to go through all that, if you're going to go through all that, boy, you couldn't have scripted it any better for this to be the way it comes out. Where again, we talked about it last week. Michael Jordan's team wins the Daytona 500. He is smiling and fired up in victory lane, and Jim France is right there with him in victory lane, smiling and fired up because he knows how good this is for the sport. So, I mean, it's just a incredible first 2 weeks, man. It's. I don't think NASCAR could have asked for much of anything better these first 2 weeks. I really don't. Mother Nature cooperated finally for the most part. They had, at least for the cup race, it cooperated, and it's part of the show now. MJ's there, which is great. I wanted to. All right, I do want to talk. Let's talk about putting on a show. Love him or hate him, Carson Hocevar is part of the show. Everybody's going to have strong opinions about him. Now, I interviewed him last year on the Braves podcast as well, and got to spend a little bit of time with him. I liked him. I found him to be the same guy that he is you see on TV. He's really funny on social media. That's who he is in person too. Very fast. Definitely he's got he's going to win races at some point, but he's still very young in his career. But I'll come back to what I started with. Love him or hate him, he's entertaining to watch. So what did you what did you think of Hocevar and particularly the move late there?
Oh, I'm a fan of Hocevar. I'm a fan. And I'll tell you why. Well, I'll tell you a result of that, being a fan. I found myself during the race at Echo Park Speedway on TV looking for the 77 car.
Yeah.
And I found myself doing it at Daytona, but at Daytona he kept having left rear tires. He's kept spinning out with blown tires. But the deal at Atlanta or Echo Park Speedway, I kept looking for the 77 car on TV, right? And I'm like, yeah, okay, this guy's got it going on. He catches so much criticism. Probably if I'm a driver and I'm one of the other 35 drivers or whatever, I'm probably pissed off at that guy because he's done something wrong to me, and I just soon him not being out on the racetrack with me, right? So, as from a driver's standpoint, probably wouldn't like that. But from a fan standpoint, man, it's not the next coming of Earnhardt, but good Lord of mercy, he's exciting to watch. I mean, you know, the ill-advised trying to get in the hole going into turn one on the last lap, that wrecked out. Who was it? He wrecked Jones, right?
Bell.
Bell,
Bell.
yeah, Christopher Bell, yeah. For like a half a second, there was like maybe 1 inch of width wider than the car. That hole was there, and he had it wide open. He stuck it in there, and then that hole went away. And then, of course, Bell got wrecked, and then the rest is history. But you know, it's like my problem with him is, he's got so much talent and so many people yapping about him. And the good part, he doesn't seem to be letting it affect him yet, because here's the deal with drivers. And I've seen this many times. Drivers that come in, they're very fast, they're very aggressive, and they're wrecking all the time. And everybody gets mad at them when they keep wrecking. They get themselves reined in a little bit where they're not wrecking. Well, guess what? They lose that edge. They lose that little bit of speed that made them excited. Also seen it the other way. Guys come in and tone down the ill-advised moves, Excuse me. They're still excited. They still got that edge. We don't know what's going to happen with Carson. We don't, if he, maybe he just keeps doing the way he is. Maybe he just keeps it like it is, and whatever happens, happens. But I just don't want him. I don't want him reeling anything in and lose that edge. That's what makes him so exciting right now. The other part of it is, he's not with a Hendrick, he's not with a Penske, he's not with a Gibbs. Right now he's with Spire, and this is no disrespect to Spire, but they're not on the level as Hendrick, Gibbs, and Penske right now, right? And so, you know, how long that team stays like that before they become a constant up front runner, I don't want Hocevar to flounder in a bad car for a long time when he gets himself taken out of the sport, or his spirit gets broken. right? Just because maybe he's not with a top tier team. Hopefully, Spear can get it up there. They can do that. And this comes into play when you go to the plate races, Ricky. You know,
Mm.
they're not plates anymore. I call them plate races.
It's
Restricted horsepower. Let's put it that way. Uh,
yeah,
when everything that equals everything up, it equals the cars up. Well, every time they have one of those deals for equal cars, guess what? That 77's up towards the front somewhere, right? When he's just showing off sheer talent and what he's doing, he's up front. So then, if you go back to the races where, it's you take it a little bit away from the driver and you put more on the car, then he's kind of not an also runner, but not doing what we saw the last 2 weeks, and so there's a lot of things going on there with him. A lot of things going on with him that I want to see work out great. But I will say this: bottom line, I'm a fan. I love,
yeah,
I love, I love watching. If he just wasn't wrecking and hitting people and all that, ill-advised moves. But hell, so many drivers go through this. So many have gone through it. But like back in our day, the time you got the cup, you'd already went through this, right? The time you got hired in cup, you weren't 19 or 20 years of age. You're 30 years of age to get hired to cup car. Well, you've already gone through the maturation process of wrecking and getting wrecked and going in holes and doing things you shouldn't. By the time you get in cup, that's all. That's history. You pretty much got that all figured out. And as time's gone on now, we're getting younger and younger and younger guys out there, and they're having to learn all this stuff in the big lights on the big stage in front of everybody. And that's kind of where Carson's at right now. But hopefully, man, it'll work. I think I'm kind of like Kyle Petty on this deal, man. I think he's going to be a superstar. I really do. That's what I'm hoping for. I just laid out some things that kind of could hinder him a little bit, and I don't want to see that happening.
yeah. No, I'm with you. I agree with you. I think he's going to be a star. I think the biggest thing beyond his God given talent that he's got going for him is he really doesn't seem like I don't think any of it affects him. I don't think he seems to be from everything you see, I don't think he's one bit at all worried or concerned about making friends that are
Nope.
fellow drivers. I don't think he's I don't and I mean, I'll admit if it was me, I'd have a little bit of problem with that because I'm somebody I want people to like me, and if I'm around these guys, I want them to like me. But I guess I want them to respect me and like me and all that. But that would probably be a hindrance to me in that.
Well, you don't have they don't have to like you. But
Right.
but they do have to respect you, alright?
Hmm.
If they don't like you, no big deal, but if they don't respect you also, then you're in trouble, but they have to respect a guy that's got talent like that, it's
Yeah.
just the way it is.
Can you think of, and maybe you can off the top of your head, but you laid out a couple scenarios of somebody that comes in hot like that, but then when they get reined in, they lose the edge. But then you said, but you've seen it go the other way where somebody comes in and they manage to kind of clean up some of the ill-advised moves, but they still have that edge and the aggressiveness, the good aggressiveness. Can you think who would be an example of somebody that
Number
you rate?
1 number 1 standout's Ernie Irvin.
Okay.
Ernie Irvin's number 1 on that list for me.
That's what that was
Ernie
going to be my
Ernie
guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Ernie is very talented, God-given talent, fast, but Lord of mercy, he caused a lot of trouble, right? A lot of races, cars got wrecked, and, he made a conscious effort. He got up in front of us at a drivers' meeting somewhere after he took out a bunch of cars at Talladega and apologized to everybody in front of the drivers' meeting, so I'm gonna straighten this out, and he did. To his credit, he did, right? And he didn't lose a bit of fastness or that edge. He's one of those guys that when he reined it in, man, he was still just as good as he was before, right? So, that's where Hocevar needs to be at some point.
Yeah. Well, it's gonna be fun to watch for sure. Um, I don't want to leave Atlanta here without talking about at least touching on the other races. Man, the O'Reilly series is so much fun to watch. I really like where that series is at right now. It's kind of got its own group of kind of stars, you would say,
Yeah.
and then just enough mix of cup guys showing up every now and then to make it interesting. That's something I've harped on with that series for a long time because I just remember it when it was still the Busch Grand National Series, when you were coming up through it, when it was still a relatively new series. And what made it so cool back in those days was you had guys like yourself that were using it like a lot of guys or most people use it now to try to get up to the top level of cup. But you also had guys that were really, really darn good race car drivers who I don't know if some of them ever even were really trying to get to cup. It had
Uh,
its own identity where it was a lot more short tracks. You'd still run Daytona, Charlotte, Darlington, Dover, but you're also running Orange County and Pulaski and Lanier and, name South Boston, Hickories, on and on and on. So you had guys that were content being really good at those places and had their own team, could afford to have their own team at that level. So you had its own group of stars, its own personality, and every now and then you'd sprinkle in some cup guys, mainly at some of the larger tracks, and it was just a really good mix. And I feel like what they've got going right now in the O'Reilly series is a really, really good mixture. They put on a great show. I felt this way last year, honestly. Then I got we had that deal at Phoenix last year, the O'Reilly race, where some TV stations they took the white flag in overtime, and some TV stations cut away from the feed. Well, my station my station here is one of them, and I got so mad that I didn't boycott, but the next Saturday, instead of rearranging my day to make sure I was around for that race, I was like, well, if I happen to be home, I'll watch it. So anyway, I got mad for a little bit, but I came back. Um, but they've got the series itself is great. Um, Austin Hill, you got to watch him at these types of places. Of course, it was an exciting finish. Sheldon Creed ends up getting his first win. I didn't realize till I said on the broadcast. I knew he'd finished second a lot. 15 times he'd finished second and hadn't won. So it's cool to see somebody break through. The broadcast booth for those O'Reilly series races is great. I mean, the call, I thought Adam Alexander, the booth call of that race was great. And don't anybody listen to this take this as a knock on any of the other broadcasts, because it's not. I'm giving that series and that broadcast team some love, because I just thought that was a really, really, it was a great broadcast. They called the moment really well. So uh I don't even have a question for you, other than just saying I'm really enjoying watching that series right now. I like what they got going there. It's a fun, it's a good it's I tell you what made me, what I couldn't stand was about 20 years ago, and I don't fault anybody for doing it, but where you had guys that were competing full time in both cup series, and I guess at that time it was probably nationwide, whatever form of it was then. I couldn't stand that. But what they've got right now, I really, really like the mixture and the formula they got. So just what are your thoughts on that
Yeah,
series right
when I came through the Busch Series, excuse me, the majority of the folks there were making their living at that. They didn't have aspirations of going on the Cup. You know, my reason for being in Busch was trying to get into Cup racing. That was, and as time evolved after me, then it started going the other way. We started getting more and more of the guys coming in, just making that a stepping stone into Cup. But you know, things evolve and things change. But like right now, you're right. I mean, they got a good deal going on. The that particular race at Atlanta, Echo Park Speedway. You know, the a couple things about that. And I go back to Austin Hill. Number one, ill-advised block going into 3. It wasn't gonna happen, all right? Chastain had it coming. I mean, he was coming so fast. Hill pulls down on him. No way that's gonna work, you know? At that point, Hill's just gotta stay in his lane and take the consequences of probably losing the race. Coming down, you're gonna if you do that, you're gonna get wrecked. What amazed me, man, when he got that thing crossed up and went in the flat, he was able to turn that thing back left real quick and never spun it out. He even said that, I think, in post race. How about that save? And I'm like, yeah, I give you that, Austin. I give you that. Then the
I
other
didn't blame
thing,
him. I didn't blame him for touting that, because I thought that I said it live. Me and my wife Laura watching. I was like, I went, damn, he saved it. Like I mean, I was just waiting for that. I mean, I was getting ready. I was waiting for the viciousness to happen of
it
either
didn't
getting
happen.
T-boned, or if he didn't get T-boned, T-boning the wall himself. So that was an incredible save. Yeah.
Then the other thing about him, you know, when Sheldon Creed talking about Sheldon Creed, kudos to him, by the way. I didn't know 15 seconds, but I knew he'd never won. I didn't know he'd finished second that many times. I knew he'd finished second a lot, but he'd never won a race. And then when he departed RCR, man, that was a bad deal. You know, if you remember, Petrie was jumping on him at Martinsville and about something the last lap, and then you know Austin Hill was mouthing Sheldon Creed, "I'll be glad when he's not my partner or teammate anymore," and You know what was so friggin' cool in Victory Lane, there was Austin Hill coming in Victory Lane, pouring beer on the boy, hugging him, high-fiving him, and truly happy for the boy's success, so, that tells everybody, right? They made up. I saw some posts on social media since that race. I thought them 2 were fighting. I thought they were fighting, and of course, that series and those things don't get covered the way the Cup deal does, so people don't really know what went on. So I don't really know other than they patched it up, and that was good to see.
So I
Good to
didn't know
see.
that either. I'm like you. I watch the race every week. I don't keep up with anything beyond the race itself. I'm not keeping up with a lot of the other stuff, like to the level that I am with the Cup Series per se. So I didn't realize until afterward that I think they said it on the broadcast, and then I saw Austin Hill's post he put on social media, like that after that whole deal, and that was a bad deal at Martinsville when Sheldon was leaving RCR. I mean, there were definitely a lot of people mad at each other over that deal. That the two of them, Austin Hill and Sheldon Creed, have become friends since then. Have become
Oh,
good
good.
friends since then.
Oh,
And
good.
Austin posted a picture of the two of them. It looked like a summertime pool party where they were both wearing like just some very American outfits, let's say, and had a whole lot of beer around, and it was a funny picture. But it was but Austin's post was nice and just talking about how happy he was for Sheldon. So that was very cool to see it. I was just like you. I did not realize they had not only patched things up, but apparently have become very good friends since all that. So that was another nice thing. Whenever you see a guy like that get his first win, and I mean, I could even go back to your first win at Dover in '87. I could play right now the opening of the broadcast the very next week at Martinsville with Jerry Punch talking about this, how if you can't win, it's always good when you see one of your fellow competitors that you like a lot, that you respect a lot, get their first win. And to see his fellow competitors all kind of, giving him thumbs up and to see him happy for him, it's like, okay, that kind of tells you a little bit about how his competitors view him, that they like him and that he has their respect. So, um, yeah, it was another great race for that series. It's a fun series to watch right now, and
Yeah.
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 Well, and we'll touch on the trucks real quick. Just Atlanta just had 3 great races this week, and Kyle Busch wins. Carson Hocevar helps him to the win. I thought that was really cool. Just
Oh,
another fun race. It's cool to see Kyle Busch, like Brexton, his son, runs out there. Like to see, the family side of it. That's another thing you think about. 20 years ago, Kyle Busch, 20 years ago, and now you see him out there as kind of a dad and all that. That was really cool. Inspired to win that, and Hocevar being a good teammate and wingman in that situation, I thought
yeah,
was pretty.
he was good on that. Nobody had any reason to fuss about Hocevar in the truck race. I mean, he helped his teammate win the race, right? Or he
Yeah,
helped, and uh, it's good. It's I tell you, no little subject, but NASCAR needs a couple things to happen. If it would be cool. NASCAR needs Kyle Busch winning.
yeah.
NASCAR needs Chase Elliott winning again. Right? If somehow or another you could magically do a formula and those 2 guys, start winning again, that would be uh, it would be good for our sport right now, and you got a little taste of that, little flavor of that with Kyle in victory lane, in that truck race. You're like, man, I'm sitting there thinking, man, he needs to be winning on Sunday more, or back to winning these old ways. It's just a good little mix. But I tell you, everybody wants to win in Cup, and it's very, very hard to do. Very hard to do.
It is. It'll be interesting to see. We got our first road course of the year, so I think we go to a road course now in 2026. The story then, I don't care which road course it is, the story is, can anybody beat SVG? And I actually, Richard Petty was talking about, he was quoted recently talking about how we don't have, oh, what was the expression he used? Somebody to chase, like a dog.
Yeah. Yeah,
You didn't have like a
rabbit,
dominant force. Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't know.
I
I don't
saw
think it's
that.
the worst thing if you have a little bit more parity as opposed to somebody just dominating the whole series. But I do feel like we have a little bit of it, at least with the road courses, and that you got a guy that like seems unbeatable, which to me actually makes it intriguing. You go into these
Uh-huh.
road courses like, well, can anybody beat this guy? everybody's touting Connor Zillage, and he's a very, very good road racer. Can he, and he's his teammate, so he's got the same equipment. Can he overcome him? Chase is a good road racer. Then you got guys like Michael McDowell. I mean, you got,
Yeah.
to me, that's intriguing. Is he
Yes.
going to just dominate? Because then at some point, somebody will beat him, right? Somebody's going to beat him, and it'll be that much more of an accomplishment that they beat him. So I don't know that I want a full year of like what the King was laying out, but I feel like we kind of have a little bit of that with the road courses, that you got somebody, it don't matter, nothing else that's happened. It don't matter what else is going on. Nothing else matters. You go into this type of track, there is one guy everybody's chasing. And that, at least for these few races, is interesting to me. I
Yeah.
don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, I agree with that. Agree 100%. And a shout and you said his name's Illich. See, shout out to that dude, man. The 2 races in these draft races, that car has been doing that dude's been doing well, I think. What's he,
Mm,
friggin' 19 years old, which is
he's a kid.
ridiculous. And
Yeah.
I saw him make a few moves at Daytona and Atlanta. I'm like, "Oh, boy, okay. He's figuring this thing out here, right?" I'm like, maybe this guy is the real deal." And, you know, wouldn't surprise me a bit to see him go to where are we going, Coda? Is that what it's
Coda.
called? Coda.
Coda.
Go to
Yeah.
Coda and do real well there again, 'cause he did real well last year at those races. So, excited to see what happens with him.
Well, and speaking of SVG, I actually at one point last night's race in Atlanta, or at Echo Park late, he'd snuck up in there in like top 5, top 10, and I even said out loud, I was like, "Where'd SVG come from?" Like every now and then, if a guy like that's making improvements on in some
Yeah.
places like that, that's another interesting thing
He
to
snuck
watch.
in there at Daytona a time or 2 also during the race. He was
Yeah,
I'm like, there's a road racer up in here mixing it up with these guys, right?
yeah,
So, I know that, the Trackhouse, I know they've got a lot of, well, they got a lot of support for him, but they have a lot of, they really want him to do good, and they think he will, okay?
yeah.
That whole team, the owner, they think he's got a lot of potential, once he gets this thing figured out. We'll see. Who knows?
All right, I saw this today on social media. It's kind of a debate that some folks were having, and of course, we talked so much about the point system in the off season, and then of course NASCAR made the change, which we agreed with, and a lot of people agreed with. So I saw some folks debating this today, and I wanted to get your take on it. And I'll tell you my take first, and then you can say what yours is. How the question or the topic is, how early should we actually start paying attention to the point standings? And should that be a major talking point as we're going to the racetrack, or we're broadcasting these races and talking about these races each week? Now, here's my take on it. And I'm a baseball guy. I work in baseball, love baseball. Baseball is I love NASCAR, but baseball is just my number one sport. That's what's consumed a lot of my life, and it's my career and what I love. And this is what I tell folks. Obviously, if you don't watch baseball, the regular season is 6 months long. You're pretty much playing a game every day. You play 162 games in a season. It's a long season. Winning your division is key. That's the first step. You can get a wild card to go to the playoffs, but winning your division is what you want to do to get into the playoffs. The season starts basically, let's call it, you run in April 1st to about October 1st, pretty much, give or take a few days. That's the 6-month window. I don't even really look. I don't even look at the standings. So that would be baseball's equivalent of a point system. I don't even start looking till maybe late May. And I really, really don't, honest to God, start actually checking it regularly until June. So until we're about a good third of the way into the season, maybe even a little bit beyond that, do I actually really start paying attention to the division, because I've seen on both sides of it. I've seen my team, the Braves. I've seen us on both sides of it over my many years as a baseball fan. I've seen us be down by seemingly insurmountable deficit and come back and win the division. And I've seen us let some leads slip away. So all that to say, I'm not a week into the season or 2 weeks into a 6-month season, and am I sitting there looking at the standings? Because to me, it just doesn't matter yet. So point standings, I'm anxious to see how it all works out. I don't envision myself looking at the NASCAR points until we're well into the season. So what do you think? When would
Well
you actually start looking.
As a competitor, you start at Daytona, right? Inside the garage, you're looking at it there, but it's not really relevant for a long time. Here's the problem we got. We got to break the habit of the media. We've so ingrained every week the last few years about the point standards, the chase, when you're in, and all that. It's kind of like old habit with the press guys, and I get it, I understand it, but the points don't even really need to be talked about right now. They don't need to be discussed. They don't need to be talked about. It's not of relevance right now. They need to be talking about the actual race and the winner of the race and what happened in the race. Give that 99.9% of all the content. Leave that little tiny bit there. Oh, he's 19th in points, by the way, right? 38 out of first or whatever. That it's you know, I just don't want. I don't want to. I don't. I was so frustrated last few years with every friggin' week. That's all we talked about. We talked about it during the broadcast. The broadcasters would talk about it continually all day long, right? Well, he's going to win the chase. He gets 5 points. He's going to do this, that points, this, and win it in points and points, points. It was very frustrating for me as a fan, I guess you say, to sit and watch that stuff, right? And when we made this change, I'm like, thankfully, good Lord, we ain't got to listen to that all the time now. And I noticed they're getting away from it a little bit, not as much as I'd like for them to. It doesn't need to be discussed right now. It really doesn't. What needs to be discussed is that driver, Hocevar, right? Uh,
Mhm.
Reddick, Wallace, all that stuff is what needs to be talked about, not the points right now. It's way, way, way too early to put any relevance into what's going on with the points. It's just way too early, you know. And of course, yeah,
Yeah,
finishing last or finishing first, it feels good as a competitor. The competitors know, right? The teams, they all know what they're doing. They know what's going on with the points. They know where they're at, where they got to make up points and all that stuff. But it's not something that we need to continually be talking about every week. And again, that was one of my hopes with going with the new deal this year, that we wouldn't have to listen to that crap every 5 minutes of every broadcast and all week long on social media. So, that's
yeah.
the way it is.
I think that's something I'll draw an Atlanta Braves comparison. So our Hall of Fame manager, Bobby Cox, and then one of his successors and proteges, Brian Snitker, who was our manager for the last decade. Of course, he just retired, but one of their mantras that they preached was, you play in baseball, you play series of 3 games, right? You play a team for 3 games and you move on to the next series for another 3 games. Your goal is each day show up, win that day, but win
Yeah,
series. That's a big thing.
yeah,
Let's look. We got 3 games against whoever, the New York Mets this weekend. Take 2 out of 3. And if you do that enough throughout the season, you're going to look at the standings and go, all right, we're right where we need to be. And of
yeah,
course, you get down to it, like when
yeah,
it's getting close, if you're in a close race, like, yeah, of course you're looking at it and you know the math, you know what you need to win. But the point is, if you're going about your business and doing what you need to do along the way, then that standings there you'll be where you'll be right in the mix of where you want to be if you're doing your job that you should be doing, and the bounces and fall your way along the
yeah.
way. So I
That's right.
completely agree. If I would look at it this way, like we've sat here and talked almost an hour, and I only brought up the point subject just because saw it was a little debate online. At no point yesterday or last week watching Daytona did I once think about points.
Yeah.
And man, that was it was actually a
Mhm.
nice
That's right. That's right.
freeing thought, because
That's
I've been
right.
thinking about we should be talking about Tyler Reddick winning the first 2 races, Michael Jordan being on TV and being now like a great ambassador for the sport. We're talking about Bubba being so close, talking about Hocevar just doing all the things he's doing and the moves he's making. That's what you need to be talking about week in and week out. And then there'll come a time when the points thing gets interesting and becomes a legitimate talking point.
Mhm.
When you get later in the year, because I remember that even back in your day, especially you take like greatest points race of all time, right? 92. There'll come a time where it's like, all right, we're really checking that now. And we're focusing on, all right, if this is what needs to happen this week. And that's legit. You should be doing it then as a fan or a
Mhm.
broadcast. But 2 weeks in ain't it. If you can't find anything to talk about with these first 2 races that you feel like you have to talk about points and you're just not looking hard enough, or your mind is too
Well,
programmed
it's
the wrong way.
it's just a habit right now
Yeah.
that they're gonna
Yeah.
have to slowly get out of, and I think they will. I think it
Yeah.
will.
I think
Yeah.
they will. Well, there's a whole bunch of there's other stuff going on, but I think we've covered a a lot of meaningful stuff. Well, wait a minute. I did have one or two more little things here. Keelan Harvick, 13 years old, signed to a development deal by Toyota Racing. I was thinking about what I was doing at 13, and I don't know that anybody would have signed
Yeah,
me to a development deal of anything.
yeah,
I think you were racing for Hooters the year I turned 13. And I think I got my first pit crew uniform. I didn't do anything, but I had a uniform.
yeah,
Um, so I I saw that and I went, darn, man. He's Toyota kind of surprised me. I figured to me, like that seemed like a Rick Hendrick
yeah,
special.
yeah, yeah, it seemed like another should be another Chase Elliott, Rick Hendrick deal, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
yeah, it doesn't surprise me that they signed him. It surprised me a little bit that Toyota signed him. Just, you would think from the his daddy's relationships over the years, but, those people are after him. They after him young now, so,
Yeah.
kudos to the Harvick family, and I'm all for
Yeah.
John Paul. John Paul is he's a little guy's granddaddy, right, that we no longer have that, uh, used to race against the Busch Series. A lot of respect for old John Paul, but, that's his granddaddy, so that'd be cool.
John Paul Linville, right?
Yeah.
Delena's dad.
Yeah.
Correct
Yeah.
me if I'm wrong. Didn't John Paul he was mainly number 62, right?
Yeah, that's how he gets that number he runs, 62. That's from his granddaddy, yeah, which is a
Yeah.
cool deal. Yeah,
That's
and
that's a very
as he comes along and he starts winning and becomes the next superstar, everybody the whole world will probably learn about John Paul, okay,
yeah,
when that all happens.
which will be really cool. That'd be a
Yeah,
very
it
cool
will. It would. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
that and then, it'll be interesting to see the last thing on my list was, Chris Gabehart being sued by Gibbs, and then shortly thereafter being officially announced by Spire, hired there. So I kinda, I don't know why I'm laughing, but I kind of looked at it. I'm like, it'd be kind of nice to follow along with a NASCAR lawsuit where it doesn't feel like the entire balance of the
Yeah,
sport or the entire sport is hanging in the balance of the
yeah,
outcome. This is just
yeah,
going to kind of be, well, we'll just see what comes out and what
yeah,
shakes out. It doesn't affect me personally. We'll
yeah,
just see how it works out. So that'll
yeah,
just be a fun little sideshow to watch, I think.
yeah, I'd say, Mr. Capehart don't feel that way, right?
Yeah.
But, that deal, golly, when we all read the complaint, from Gibbs' side, everybody read that, and you're like, "Ooh, ooh, okay, this isn't good." But then we saw his counter complaint, right? And we're like, "Huh, all right, maybe this is not all here the way we think it is." Okay, I don't care what you do, man. If you're in business, you're in a business. That's why they have non-compete clauses in so many businesses, right? Heck, I've had a couple that been involved in some of those things, and you know, you can't unlearn what you've learned. You know, whatever that dude's got in his mind and his brain that he recalls, remembers, or maybe went home and wrote down notes. I don't know. He kept notes for himself or whatever. You can't you can't keep him from using that stuff. But the deal they got him on, was supposed to be downloading it using the Gibbs hardware and downloading it to his hardware direct and all that. He says it didn't happen. He says it did. But, you know, that's one of the things in our sport that's a tough deal, man. But it's gone on since the beginning. If you got a crew chief and man, you're all hauling butt and somebody comes along with a boatload of money, guess what? That crew chief's gonna go for that boatload of money and take all his knowledge with him, and that's always gone on that way. And then they come up with the non-compete clauses that everybody signs, and you can't all that means is you can't go to work for a competitor for a certain amount of time, right? And that goes on in business all the time, not just
Oh
racing,
yeah.
but business, but, uh, I don't know, it's gonna be interesting. I hate it honestly, I hate it for both parties. I know both parties there a little bit, and they're both good people, both sides, real good people, and for that to happen, but it kinda answers a lot of questions because nobody could get an answer out of anybody what happened to him back in November, December? We knew he'd left. Hell, couldn't nobody find out anything. And this here explains why. Man, they were all dealing with lawyers and keeping their mouths shut to try to get to try
Mhm.
to get to this point. So hopefully those guys will get it resolved and settled, and everybody can go about their business.
Yeah, divorces are they're just messy sometimes.
Yeah,
That's
man,
what
they're
the way
just
it is.
messy. Yeah,
I did see I did it was really funny when, Denny Hamlin he quote tweeted the story when it broke, and he just he just used that gif of Kenny Wallace of him doing that guy just
yeah.
I got such a kick out of that. I was like, "God, that was funny." That was so funny. So,
Oh
yeah.
man.
So Man, we're 2 weeks into the season, and there is not a shortage of stuff to talk
Yep.
about and be entertained by and read about, and now we're going to Dakota this weekend, and I'm sure we'll have a whole lot more to talk about next week, so
We will. We will.
alright, well, if you aren't already following us, Masscast Show on Instagram, X, TikTok. He's at Rick Mast 22 on Instagram and X. I'm at Ricky Mast on Instagram and X. Follow us there. And hey, here's the biggest one. Here's the main one. We're still we're hooked up with Kenny Wallace Media, but as part of that, we are now on Rick Mastcast Show on YouTube. So you can give us a subscribe. Subscribe to us on
Did
YouTube.
you say Rick Mastcast?
Rick Mastcast Show.
I
Yeah,
thought
I'm
it was
all right.
Mastcast.
Well, that's the name of the show. But if you're going to the YouTube address, here, I'm gonna
Oh,
bring
okay.
let me bring it up.
Heck, I didn't even know that, Ricky.
Well, I know I'm breaking news here. I'm sorry. It's at Rick Matscast on YouTube. Just give us a follow or subscribe to us on
Okay. All
YouTube.
right.
We're part of Kenny Wallace Media,
Yeah.
but as part of it, we got our own YouTube channel. Okay. So
Yeah.
Rick Mast Cast on YouTube. Subscribe there. Actually, we put up a clip from one of our shows a couple weeks ago, but our full shows are going to start going there. We put up a clip a couple days ago of us talking about Dale Earnhardt Senior memories, and some people are getting a kick out of that and enjoying that. So give us a follow there. So we're on all the socials. And if there's anything you want to hear, you want to ask Rick, or I guess if you want to ask me, I don't know what you want to ask me, but if you do, hit us up on any one of those places, and we'll get back to you. So, all right, Dad, we'll do it again next week.
Sounds good, guys. Toodaloo, everybody.
See ya.